2, 3, 4.
Rev up your engines!
Pandemic has accelerated some things like online grocery shopping, but on the other hand, it certainly slowed down self-driving cars. What Scotty has to say is good, because it's a fantasy anyways. I've had arguments, personal arguments, when I did business in Seattle with internet stuff, and the guys all said, oh, Scotty, you're an old fuddy-dud. That's the future. The cars are going to drive themselves. And I just laughed at them and said, you guys are living in la-la land. Yeah, you're in the ether with your internet and software, but you're not really in the real world where the rubber hits the road. Machines and people, they're not the same. The machines, a lot of software to even do simple things that people just naturally can pick up on. And if you're going to have them driving machines, yes, they probably will be more efficient than humans, because humans are looking around, thinking of something, looking at their phone, smashing into things. They won't be perfect. Not being perfect, people will be killed. As soon as they get killed by a machine, the lawyers are going to come out of the woodwork. And that would be the end of any place that has truly autonomous driving, unless it was only in specified situations, like a train. A train does what? Carries a lot of stuff, but it's on a track, its own track. There aren't people driving their own little trains on the same track. If they want to have autonomous roads that only the machines can go on, fine and dandy. But you add people and machines together, they can't drive on the same road. You ask any intelligent person, they'll tell you the same thing. And, of course, with software problems, I mean, let's face it, they can't even build cars today, have really good software off the bat. A lot of the new cars, they got to reprogram them later on. They find out there's glitches. Then they find out when it gets a certain amount of mileage, it doesn't work right because the software didn't compensate for the wear correctly in the mechanical parts, so it doesn't shift right if it's a transmission that's computer controlled. Complex stuff. So, you know what I have to say? I say good. They can give up with this autonomous driving for a while. Just like flying cars when I was a kid. Yeah, flying cars are going to be everywhere, right? Well, there aren't flying cars except in a place in Australia where they're racing them. They're not really flying cars. They're just kind of little bitty race airplanes that are made small with electric motors on them. They're more like drones than large drones than they are like cars. So I think it's a good thing that they'll slow down on this stuff, because to me, a lot of that stuff, too much science fiction and not enough science. I don't think there's going to be self-driving things for quite some time unless, like I say, they're on their own specific area where only they can be and people aren't allowed to drive there. Drover says, my father-in-law gave us the 2010 Jeep Patriot with 130,000 miles. We don't know what kind of problems you should wait or look out for. What's the saying go? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Well, in this case, you should look him in the mouth. You want to change the oil every 4,000 or 5,000 miles. Change the coolant once every 5 years. Change the transmission fluid on those that are weak every 30,000 miles. Then baby it. Now, you got it for nothing. They're not that well made, but you got it for nothing. Do that. Drive it around. But if something big, like the engine or transmission, starts to have serious problems, it's going to cost a lot of money to fix, ditch the thing. Don't throw money into it. You got it for nothing, so what the heck? You know? But you find out that, oh, it's going to need a transmission for $3,600. Don't do that. Just get rid of the vehicle then. If you baby it, you never know. You got it for nothing, and you can't argue that. Brandon Barrera says, what happens if you miss gas types? I have a 2018 Mazda 3. Well, generally, nothing. You have to realize that all the gas sold in the United States has to meet certain federal minimum requirements, but even further. In most areas, there's only one refinery that refines gasoline. So let's say it's a Shell refinery. Well, if you buy Exxon or any other brand, even buy your gas at Walmart, that gas probably comes from the same refinery. If it's a Shell refiner and you're buying Exxon gas, well, then Exxon buys it and they put their additives. They put different additives. There's just slightly different things in them. But the whole basis, most of the gasoline is going to be made in one place anyway. And any kind of gasoline mixes with any other kind of gasoline. Like, let's say you put a tank of high test in, then you put a tank of regular gas in. It's just going to mix all together anyways, and then it would have an octane rating that would be between the high and the low. And the way modern cars are made, especially one like yours, 2018, the computers can compensate for octane rating on anything. Those flex fuel, they can run anywhere from 0 to 85% ethanol in the gasoline, which is 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. So modern cars are pretty sophisticated. You can run them on just about any gasoline that you buy, at least in the United States. Now, in other countries, people tell me some of the supplies are really crappy and they have to use one versus another because some of the companies are garbage. But here in the United States, there's rules for it. And as long as you buy it from a station that's kept up and they don't let water flood and get inside the tanks and you get water in the gas when you're pumping it, you're perfectly fine. Up in Alberta says, greetings, Scotty. Why do different manufacturers advise different mileage between synthetic oil changes? GM dealer says to change it every 3,000 miles. Volkswagen, they say every 5,000 miles. Subaru says 10,000 kilometers. Okay, well, other companies, they do as they please, you know. And some of the companies even are being paid to have tie-ins with the companies that make the oil. Like there are some companies out there that they're being paid that on the cap of their engine, it'll say use Mobil 1 synthetic oil because Mobil 1's paying them to put that on there. It's advertising for them. And they hope that if it says that they'll sell a lot more of their Mobil 1 to the people that buy those cars. That's just how all that stuff works. I know years ago I met with some guys at Shell Oil and they came up with this oil made from natural gas that's made in the Middle East. They turn natural gas into oil. And it's called Pure Premium and it's a very good oil, but it's a super expensive oil, right? And I said, how are you guys going to sell it? They said, well, they cut deals with some manufacturers that they use it for their factory fill. And they didn't make much money selling it to the other factories because they're going to be cheap. It's a factory. But they saw that as a great ad because the dealer and the factory, they come with this oil. So they assume that when you buy the car, you're going to keep using that oil. And then if they sell hundreds and thousands or millions of those cars, millions of those people will be buying that pure platinum oil to put it in. That's their marketing strategy. So what you're dealing with there is marketing strategy gone wild. So anything's possible. You know, absolutely anything's possible with their suggested ratings. Henry the I-8 it all says, I got a 2004 GMC Yukon. It's in a limp mode and it has a bunch of shift solenoid faults. First of all, make sure you don't have dirty fluid, clogged filter. You might just change the fluid and filter just to make sure because that can do that. But on those, in the transmission, they have a shift solenoid pack. This isn't one where there's like 8 solenoids and you got to guess which one is bad. When they do go bad, you buy the shift solenoid pack. So if changing the filter and fluid doesn't work, I've had very good luck then changing the shift solenoid pack. Now, if you're going to take it all apart and change the filter and fluid, and if you want to gamble, go buy the shift solenoid pack and put that in, because that's often the problem. You didn't say the mileage that you had, but I mean, it's, what'd you say it was? It's okay, it's a 16-year-old one, and they will wear out. You might just buy the solenoid pack when you change the filter and fluid and put it in, because if it isn't out now, it'll probably go out soon in the future, knowing GM trucks. Gabe's Pawpaw says, just replace the original front brakes on my '09 Kia Optima with new Akabono pads at 104,000 miles. I noticed the old inside pads on both wheels were more worn than the outside pads. The outside had 8mm left and the inside had 5. That's normal. You know, it's an 11-year-old Kia with 104,000 miles and they were the original brake pads. No car is going to wear perfectly evenly, and the way the calipers work is piston inside. Those, of course, are going to move the freest. So those pads generally are going to wear out faster. The ones on the outside move by the friction of the whole caliper. And so they're going to wear out a little bit faster. They'll stick a little bit. 104,000 miles, you're going to get different wear like that, you know. It's just so many miles that things are off a tiny, 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 tiny. You see, it took 104,000 miles to wear just that skinny little pad down. So little minuscule problems, it's nothing to worry about. I wouldn't worry about it. Just put the new pads and drive it. You get that kind of mileage out. You know, if that happened after 10, 12,000 miles, yeah, you got a problem. But that many miles, no. That is actually normal wear and tear on any vehicle like that. Billy's gone a bit silly, says, I got a 2015 Volkswagen Passat. My brake pedal is too stiff, so I changed the brake master cylinder. No difference. By the way, it's also a turbo, if that means anything. You change the master cylinder. If they're stiff, a lot of times it's a bad master cylinder. But you told me it's a turbo. Some of those things, it gets super expensive. The camshafts wear out. And you might think, what does a camshaft have to do with the brake system? Well, that's a turbocharged one. It can't use the vacuum on the engine to boost the brake because there's too much of it with a turbocharger. So they have a vacuum pump that runs off of the cam. The cam wears out, doesn't pump the pump, no boost, your pedal will get stiff. But the pump itself can break too. So take it off and check it. Pray it's the pump that's breaking and not the camshaft. Replacing the camshaft is going to cost you thousands. The pump, it's still expensive, but it's a lot less than changing the camshaft.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.